Good evening and welcome. It's Friday, it's 8 o'clock, and that means it's time for Buster's Virtual Jazz Club. Yes, we're live streaming live on the internet, on YouTube, to infinity and beyond. I hope you had a good week, and do say hello in the chat box if there's anyone there. I can see Paul and Laurie are here already. Lovely to see you guys. Thank you to all my regular subscribers and to everyone who makes a donation either through my Patreon page or on PayPal. It means a lot and it's been a massive help this year, and I thank you also for those lovely messages that you send me. It's much appreciated. Don't forget to visit my website, which is busterbirch.co.uk/virtual jazz club, the links below, where you can watch all of the past shows and see who my upcoming guests will be. And I've just booked a whole bunch of shows, so I've got the next 4, 5, 6 weeks all booked up now. Some great guests coming up, so do look out for that. And so on tonight's show, my guest this evening was brought up in Preston in Lancashire and began classical piano lessons at age 9, but began to teach himself jazz at around age 11. He went on to study at Goldsmiths College in London and joined the National Youth Jazz Orchestra. He began playing professionally in the late 70s, touring with Harry Beckett and Elton Dean, and in 1986 received the first Pat Smythe Memorial Trust Award presented to him by the late great Ronnie Scott. He has also worked with a number of American jazz luminaries, most notably Elvin Jones, Phil Woods, Benny Golson and James Moody. In the 1990s were a very busy time for him when he appeared regularly at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club with his own trio and also with Alan Skidmore, Claire Martin and Peter King. In 1996 he was appointed Professor of Jazz Piano at London's Royal College of Music. In 2000 he joined the New Couriers, a band formed by Martin Drew and Mornington Lockett, and recorded 4 albums with them. He also played with Georgie Fame at the world famous Philharmonic Hall in Berlin. In 2012, he was invited to play with the European Jazz Ensemble, a band which has featured many outstanding musicians from all over Europe since its inception in 1976. He is particularly proud to have been one of Stan Tracy's favourite pianists. They played several duet concerts together, and he deputised for Stan several times, including on performances of the Under Milkwood Suite, the landmark album from 40 years earlier. He was commissioned by the National Youth Jazz Orchestra to arrange a piece written by Stan Tracy for an album to mark their 50th anniversary, which was launched at Ronnie Scott's in 2016. And his latest album, Trace Elements, a duo with Art Thiemann, includes a number of inventive original compositions paying tribute to the time when the great Stan Tracy was nearing the end of his long career, and he personally suggested that he might continue with his legacy. These compositions are presented alongside works by Thelonious Monk and Stan Tracy himself. And I'm pleased to say that he's here with us now, live on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the very wonderful Mr. Steve Melling. Hello, mate. How are you?
Hey, Buster. How you doing?
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for giving up your time and for sharing all this wonderful music with us. I'm really looking forward to it. You've done such a great job providing these tracks. You've made it very easy for me for starters, so I do appreciate that.
I trust that'll be reflected in my fee.
Yes, of course. Well, we'll have to wait and see what the donations bring in. But you've very kindly also, we've got some exclusives tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm very pleased with that. You've brought along some unreleased music, some unheard music, and some rare footage we've got of some great live footage of you playing with Peter King and Alan Skidmore, which we're going to see in a bit. But before we get started, I usually like to kick off by saying, how have you been keeping over this very strange year we've had? Have you been managing to keep yourself busy? I know you write a lot, and you're a keen composer and arranger, and I'm sure you've been kind of finding yourself things to do. What have you been up to, Steve?
Yeah, well, it's been pretty hellish for all musicians, I think, because people can't do gigs, they just can't go and do them, and even if they could, a lot of people wouldn't come. Because of the invisible menace that we've got. But even before that, I decided that for some years now, I decided that if I wasn't working, I would have to keep do a day's work anyway at home. And so that's what I do. I always do a day's work. Mostly it's sitting in front of this computer with my keyboard that's here, and writing things either into a score, notation software, or recording a digital audio workstation, and using MIDI, which is anyway, MIDI. Google it, and samples of which is recorded samples of instruments. So I'm trying to achieve a real sound, but just from this workstation sitting here.
So it's good. You've got a pretty good setup there. Then you're very much keeping up with the technology and things like that, and that's an ongoing process, isn't it? I mean, I know I dabble a bit, and it's the dark arts for me, some of it, but you have to kind of use it. But then some of it is incredibly useful, isn't it? For, like you say, scoring and notating and having things to be able to transpose and write parts. I do a lot of that myself, and it's amazing what we can do and produce, isn't it, for at home? Yes.
But I've been getting by, really. I have a little teaching, which I enjoy. I mean, I do that online via Skype. I use Skype.
Right, yeah.
And I've used that for ages, and that works.
Yeah.
And I've got my piano, you might be able to see just behind.
Yes, we can see that.
A laptop at the side there, and do it through that. I've had a couple of commissions. One was actually supposed to be a recording. I was supposed to go and record with Esther Miller, vocalist, and to go to Denmark. She lives in Denmark. She might be watching. Hello. And she wanted to record. She has wanted to record an album, just the two of us, duo. For some years, and it's eventually said, we should do this now, and I'm ready to do it. Why don't you come over with Sam, my wife, for a week, and we'll record. And will you do some arrangements, by the way? So, so I did that, and I was working on those, but it didn't work out because it was just a little bit too sort of risky at the time for us to go.
Yes.
It did, I'm pretty, and it was probably a good job we didn't, because soon after that they shut the borders.
Yeah. Right.
And in Denmark there was that mink. Mink.
Gosh, yes, that terrible thing. Yes, that was awful.
Yes, they were infected. Mink farm or whatever they're called were infected.
Yes.
And there's all
thousands of them, weren't there? That's a slaughter. Terrible.
And they had to cope then, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got off to a cracking start with that.
Keep it light, mate. Yeah.
Another thing was that I had a commission.
Family show.
I had a commission from Dean Masser. You know Dean?
I don't know Dean. No.
Yeah, saxophone player.
Right.
And he wrote some. He came over to see me, to stay with us a couple of times, and he said, "I've been writing these things, and I want to sell them. I'll get them on the internet and print them, and all of that. And I can't do that notation thing. I can't do the software." He said, "I've written them all out," and so he asked me if I would write them up and I use Dorico notation software.
Right. I've heard of it. I don't use it, but I know of it. Yes, it's quite getting more popular, isn't it now? It's quite a new one.
It is really good. It looks splendid when it's it's a different thing than the old one, Sibelius, which I used to use, but I moved away from that. Anyways, so I copied out his book for him, and there's 8 things for, and it's done for all saxophones. He's worked it out so that
and so you've arranged these, have you, or you've just done
he wrote them.
Right, I see.
He wrote them. I copied them. That's all.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was backwards and forwards, and there was one particular thing in that he was saying that staccato dot that you put on there, it's not staccato, it's just a mark on the page.
Bit of spider's legs on the.
Yeah, he wrote it all out in pencil. I mean, it was great. It done very detailed stuff.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there was all the backwards and forwards of editing. Yes. Can you just, That
can be a bit dull, can't it? What a lot of people might not quite appreciate is that there's quite a few different jobs involved, isn't it? And quite often we end up doing all of it. But the composer is quite a different part often from the arranger, and who is a completely different person from the copyist who prepares all the scores and parts and things like that. So and sometimes it can be the same person doing all of it. But and as a piano player, obviously you're versed in all those skills. Do you find that arranging your own music is easier than arranging other people's music, or is there a big difference in that kind of mental process for you? Or when you're composing, do you hear the thing arranged? Is it like a finished thing, or do you start with a sketch, like a tune, and then arrange it? And how do you find that compares if somebody says, like, here's a tune, can you arrange it for big band or whatever? Is that a very different? That's I know that's quite a different process, but people might not appreciate that.
Well, I would say other people's music is easier for me.
Right, interesting.
Because it's often I'll be playing these certain voicings, and then. And it's piano. It's a piano piece, and I'll sort of think, if I'm trying to arrange it for other, I'll sort of think, well, why did I write that? It's and that course it's too difficult to improvise on. Even
right, yeah. So you're thinking of yourself playing it on the piano when you're composing.
That is a bit of a failing. I mean, you've got to. Obviously, if you're going to arrange it for a larger group, you've got to take into account the range of the instruments.
Yeah.
For a kickoff, and sometimes you can't do it in that key because
this doesn't work across the range of that instrument. Yeah.
Or you can't. You imagine it on, let's say, a saxophone, and it don't go up that far.
Yeah. So I guess there's a curse, isn't there, to the piano? I never thought of it that way around because I'm always, I love the piano, and I'm a what I call a piano owner. There's mine behind me, as opposed to a piano player. But I love using the piano for working at music because, as again, a lot of people might not realise, but the range of the piano is bigger than any other instrument. So obviously anything else will fit on the piano, but it never really occurred to me that you can't go the other way around, can you? Of course, if you're a lot of stuff doesn't fit. So and if you're thinking as a pianist, then maybe there are some restrictions for composing for other instruments. I guess. I never thought of that. Well, look, should we jump in and play some music, because we're going to kick off with this. You've very kindly provided some great footage which I've never seen before, and I don't think this is up on YouTube anywhere. So. This is we've got. Well, we're going to start with the Peter King Quartet, who you work with Peter a lot, and I mean, and I, as it's often been said, your style fits him so beautifully, and you work together so well, and I've seen you many times, and in this quartet we've got the great Tony Levin as well, who's another player who I think you work very, very well with. It really just slots in beautifully.
I met Tony quite late on, in my career, and we did click, and it was kind of sad that we didn't play together.
No, I can hear it. Yeah, you're coming from similar reference points, I think, perhaps musically, and there's obviously a lot of common ground there. So this footage you've provided with us is a video, and this is from a live concert that you played with the Peter King Quartet in Sicily at a jazz festival, which we think is Catania.
Catania, I think so. Yeah, either that's the place or the region. Right. In Sicily,
Perhaps somebody will tell us. And this was from August 2010, which is not so long ago, but it's a little grainy. We thought it was a bit older at first, simply because the footage is a little grainy. But
it's a bit suspect, really. I'm not sure about that date, but let's go.
That'll do for now. Close enough for this show, anyway. And this is a tune called Yes and No by Wayne Shorter, and it's just fantastic. You guys are just so on form, and I won't say any more about it. Let's just watch it and enjoy, folks. So here we go. Yes, wonderful stuff. That was the Peter King Quartet featuring my guest Steve Melling on the piano and the wonderful Tony Levin on the drums there. I was just saying, oh, what a great sound he has and great playing that whole kind of Elvinfeld vibe. And we should mention Mick Cody on the bass as well, who's from Dublin, I think you said, Steve.
I think so. I'm not absolutely certain, but yeah, he's...
and this was in Sicily. You said it was we were just chatting and you were saying how hot it was. It's midnight when you shot that and it's been about 40 degrees all day. So everybody was absolutely roasting.
It was baking, yeah. It was 40 plus it was. Obviously glorious when you looked out, but to step out.
Yeah, and put a jacket on and go and do a hot, sweaty, steaming jazz gig. Oh, crikey, yeah. But wonderful playing, Steve. It's just great, and there's a real connection there with you all. I mean, it's really clear to hear that how well you play together.
It's a good clip of Pete. One thing I have to say is though that was not Wayne Shorter's.
No, of course. I'm sorry,
and that's my fault actually, because I was going to send you the yes or no. Track, and then I sent this. And anyway,
it's fun.
This was a piece that was written, a tune that was written by Kurt Weill.
Yes.
And it's Pete's arrangement of this tune that's called "This Is New."
This is new, yeah. I thought it didn't sound like Wayne Shorter, but I didn't recognise it, so I wasn't sure. But
it's not particularly new anyway. I think it was written quite
Kurt Weill, no, it would be quite old actually now, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, fantastic. It's a great sort of snapshot shot of Pete, who, I mean, he even into his late career, he would always come up with the goods.
Yeah, it's a great.
Sometimes he would turn up at the gig and say, I don't really feel that great. I'm a bit, I don't know. And even he would have a sax player such as Mornington Lockett standing by. Yeah. He'd invite him to the gig to stand by. Yeah. But he would never actually go off. He wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, that happens when he played at Orpington. I brought him to Orpington and we played a concert there with my trio and Simon Spillett kindly stood in as a standby as well, because he was not well at all actually, and I went in the interval and he's completely prostrate on the floor in the kitchen of the Liberal Club, and I was thinking, oh crikey, what's happened? He said, oh my back's in. That's right. But then he just played great all night. It was amazing.
He'd do that and say, you're too great, and all that, and play like a god every time.
He's dearly missed. And we've got quite a lot of activity in the chat box, so I thought I'd just take a moment to say hello to everybody. Thank you for joining in with the conversation. Steve Clark's enjoying his wine. Mary Proudlock, hi. David Schilling is here. He says hello to Steve. Good to see you, looking so well. Linda Carter, hello. Brian Way, greetings from Normandy. Hello, young Steve. Nice to see you after all this time. And Peter Gores here. Hello, Peter. Sophie Kent. Hello, Sophie. How are you? Nice to see you. Yeah, Rob Wilson's here.
Whoever she is.
And Andy Panay is in the house as well. Lovely to see Andy. And Esther Bennett. Lovely.
Hi Esther.
Puts me in mind of Saturday night at the 606. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah, and Steve Clark says he first saw Peter King at the Orpington Jazz Club with Simon Spillett as backup. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was the gig. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, absolutely wonderful. And so what we're going to do now, if it's all right with you, Stevie, perhaps we talk a little bit about how you got started and the early days. And again, you've provided a fantastic recording for us to play, which is really wonderful. But before we play that, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about, your journey are you from a musical family? I know your dad liked big band records, like a lot of people's kind of stories, listening to that. But how you got from that to, college and playing music, perhaps you could fill a bit of that in for us.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm not from a musical family.
Right.
I listened to my dad's 78 records.
Yeah.
and he had quite a few big band things. Stan Kenton, Ted Heath.
Right.
He used to go to the Winter Gardens in Blackpool and dance to the Ted Heath Orchestra.
Lovely.
With Ronnie Verrill on drums.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah, Don Lusher and
Ronnie Hughes, would it be on trumpet?
Yeah, yes, it would be, in that time, and we'd be talking late 50s probably.
Yeah.
So I used to listen to those. He had some small groups. He had Chet Baker and Mulligan, the Mulligan Chet Baker. No piano in that.
The quartet, yeah.
Yeah. And
so would you play along with that? How did you find that? Or was this before you were kind of really, this was just listening kind of point?
I listened to that.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was a Freeway and Walking Shoes on the other side.
Walking Shoes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And
anyway, there was a Lionel Hampton, Flying Home.
Flying Home, yeah.
And he also had Eric Delaney.
Ah.
A sort of novelty piece, Oranges and Lemons.
Right.
Yes, say the bells of St. Clement's.
Right, yeah.
And it was Delaney playing timpani.
Playing the timpani, right? Great, yeah. Gosh.
So that was sort of some of the things that he had.
Kind of novelty record, I think they called it back then. Was that like a novelty record?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. There was Peanut Vendor.
Oh yes, was that with Candido on the conga? That one. I remember my dad having a record of that, the Peanut Vendor.
Not sure about that.
With Stan Kenton and Candido.
Anyway, those were some of the records that he had, and I used to listen to those, and played them round and round, as you did. Just having a few things to listen to, not like today where you've got a hard drive that's full of stuff that
so you'd get to know the records much better, wouldn't you? You'd really know them, wouldn't you, if you've only got half a dozen records? Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
That's right. Well, so I was just doing that and listening to the radio a bit as well. We always listen to the radio in the morning before we went to school. Anyway, school. When I was 9 years old, it rained one day, and lunchtime we were in school because they call it wet play now, don't they? It was just we stayed in because it was raining, and the teacher, as I say, I was about 9 years old, and the teacher called up a girl who was in my class, and he was chatting to her, and there was a piano in the room.
Right.
And then he stood up and said that Ruth, the girl, is going to play her pieces for us now.
Right.
And I think they must have probably been about like grade 3 classical exam pieces. So Ruth Holland got up there and played a couple of things. And I turned to my mate to the side and said, "That's really good. I'd like to do that." And he said, "Well, I can play." Well, I thought, "But can everybody play or what? I mean, is that something that everybody does or what?"
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've missed out here.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the guy, I remember his name, Wayne Sumner. The following day, I think it was, I said to him, "Will you show me?"
Right.
Because then, of course, once he showed me, then I'd know how to play.
Yeah. Right. Like that's all you need. Yeah. Exactly.
Just show me, and
yeah.
So we came in. Obviously, we weren't supposed to, but we went up to the classroom during the lunchtime the following day when everyone was out.
Right.
And he showed me what he could play and taught me, and it was something like chopsticks or that kind of thing. Diddle-um, boom boom, that kind of stuff. And so I I learned that by rote, just copied what he did. And he showed me. And so I went home to my dad and I said, I've been playing the piano. Right. And he's like, oh, right, okay. And this happened several days in a row.
Right,
I went home and said, I've been playing the piano again. Right. And then until eventually I said, I can play the piano.
Right.
Because I think I could make it to the end of this piece without any help whatsoever.
Right.
But one miracle that happened during those few days was that as we were doing this, my mate and I, the door opened. We're playing here and the door is just there. And it opened. A teacher stuck his head in. And said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And because you're not supposed to be in here. And I blagged it somehow, I think. I said, we're just playing. He's teaching me how to do this. And we're just playing the piano. And it sort of went quiet for a sec. And he didn't say anything. And he just backed off and closed the door.
Right. Oh, left
if he hadn't done that, it could have ruined it.
Yes.
It could have ruined my start.
Whole could have ended up being a drummer.
Could have
done. Fantastic. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. So that's like a really kind of like pivotal moment for you that's still very clearly.
Just these little things, there's been a few of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so my dad then, because I was going on about this, he said, would you like to learn, like properly?
Oh, right.
So he used to go to a jazz gig, and he talked to the pianist there. And the pianist, because my dad was asking him to teach me, really.
Right.
And the pianist, the guy said, which was, in my opinion, a wise thing to say. He said, get him a proper teacher.
Right.
Proper piano teacher. He said, I can show him things, but, get him a proper teacher. So
that's good, yeah.
Yeah, so my dad said, well, who? And the guy recommended a teacher. So I had classical piano lessons.
Right.
And I was with Miss Lawson for about 5-6 years and did my grades.
Right, so fairly standard kind of start then at that point with the musical education, yeah.
But then I started to pick out tunes by ear because I was, come home from school, I was straight on it.
And would these be the tunes that you're hearing on your dad's records, maybe, that you're starting to connect?
Not at first. It was just sort of anything.
Yeah. Anything
I could think of, and anything that I would just play some notes, and anything that suggested itself, I'd carry on with it.
So you think you had a natural good ear then, perhaps in there, built in?
Well,
do you think,
I don't know.
Or just the curiosity to sit and spend the time figuring it out, basically?
It was just great fun, and it was doodling really on the piano.
Yeah.
And but then when I went to secondary school,
and
I was about 11 or 12, there was quite a thriving music society there.
Right.
And there was a trumpet player, whose name was Martin Reed, and his dad played cornet in a brass band, and there was a trombone player, Warren Simpson, and the three of us played a little bit and tried to play a bit together. And the trumpet player said, my dad's got some music, jazz.
Great, yeah.
So we played Tiger Rag.
Oh, wonderful, yeah.
And did we play it?
Yeah. Over and over and over.
We played it, yes. Every lunchtime for a long time.
Fantastic.
And eventually, the music teacher, who was a very enterprising, Chris Pollington, he got some money somehow, and to invest in the music, in musical instruments. And one day he said he'd been to Manchester and he came back with a double bass and a drum kit.
Right. So you're off then. You've got a band
so
now.
So
fantastic.
That's, he realized that the potential for jazz music in the school. By the time I'd left that school, we had an 11-piece band.
And you made a record.
And we made an album.
And how
in 1974.
A vinyl album.
Vinyl, yeah. And I was 15.
And you've still got it.
Yeah.
And you've sent us a track of you playing the piano in the school band, which was made a vinyl record. Isn't that amazing? I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Before we play it, I've got a little comment in the chat box here from somebody who went to school with you.
Yeah.
P&S Hayton. I don't know if that's
Peter.
Peter, Peter, he says he remembers Ruth. Amazing. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm still in contact with Peter. I spoke to him earlier this week.
Hello, Peter.
Peter Hayton. And he how you doing, Pete? And he recorded and digitized this track.
Fantastic.
For me,
and that's how we've got it. Yeah.
And sent it over. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Peter. That's very good. So we're going to play this now because I think this is a bit of history here. This is fantastic, and this has not been played on the internet before. Oh, well, maybe it has. I don't know, but
no, I don't think it's been anywhere.
It's not been anywhere. So we're going to dust it off.
There's no piano solo.
No, but we can hear you.
But the engineer did a decent job of mixing. You can hear my comping pretty well.
And so this is American Patrol. And this is your high school band. Fantastic. What an absolute treasure. Here we go then, folks. American Patrol. Fantastic. That really swings. I think it sounds great, that, Steve.
Yeah.
And Pete, thank you, Pete, for bringing that in. That's Peter Hayton on the bass as well there. So bit of history there. Matt Radcliffe is here. He says, hi, Steve. So...
Hey.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's wonderful. Let's we've got a couple more tracks we're going to play coming up, but I think what I'd like to talk about a little bit, just touch on, is before this next project we're looking at is a septet that you co-led with Clark Tracy, and it's a fantastic lineup. Simon Allen on the alto, Dave O'Higgins on the tenor, Mark Armstrong on the trumpet, Mark Bassey on the trombone, Steve Melling on the piano, Jeff Gascoigne on the bass, who is my guest on next week's show, and of course Clark Tracy on the drums. Can you tell us a little bit about how this project came about? Because a septet is quite an unusual kind of lineup. I mean, it's great. In some ways it's perfect. You've got the four horns, alto, tenor, trumpet, trombone, brilliant, and then the piano, bass, drums. And the album is called Special One. And I just wonder, perhaps you could talk a bit about how the project came about, and are they your arrangements? Did you do the arrangement and the compositions as well, and things like that? Was it something that you commissioned and wrote for, or were they pieces that kind of already existed?
No.
Sorry, a lot of questions here. One go.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Mate. Yeah.
It's all right. No, these are all originals, except for one that's an arrangement, and they were done by members of the band.
The arrangement of the tunes were written by the band.
Yes. So there's Dave wrote one.
I see.
Jeff wrote one. And so on.
Brought one in each other. That's a great way to do it, isn't it? Yeah, because it's a lot of work, isn't it? Otherwise.
Yeah, well, I mean, time was getting on. And I mean, originally I'd, was thinking that I would do a lot of arrangements and do these things. But then I thought, well, I haven't got time because we need to record. And, and we need to rehearse it, record. So we had one rehearsal and then I think we had 2 days in the studio. Incidentally, Josephine Davis was on some of the tracks too, playing tenor.
Great, yeah.
When Dave couldn't make it all, and I think, and so,
do we know when this was roughly? Could we get a date roughly around about ish?
2012, I think.
2012-ish. That'll do. That's close enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
We did it at Derek Nash's studio.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, fantastic.
Not far from you, I think.
Yeah, I've been there many times. Yeah, it's I thought it sounded good. Nice one, Derek. So yeah. And was this a band that was put together then for this album? Or was it like had this lineup played? Had there been much?
No, we hadn't done a gig, so we did rather than we didn't go and road test the charts and then record. We didn't do it that way. Yeah, we just wrote the charts. Yeah, and actually, it came from a conversation that I had with Clark. Right. And I said, I'm thinking about, a new group, or we could do it together, maybe. And obviously, I've known Clark for a long time.
Well, I was just going to say, something you've worked with a lot, isn't he, Clark? Yeah. So
and he said, well, I think the only size of band that he hadn't had, was a 7-piece.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I did it. it was sort of, I sort of got it together and maybe talked to him about the personnel, but I sorted out the studio and sorted out the rehearsal. We rehearsed at the 606.
Great.
One afternoon, and then recorded over a 2-day period, I think. Yes, it was 2 days.
Which is that's still going some, isn't it? For a sort of big sort of project like that with all those musicians, that's that's not slouching. That isn't. That's
no.
It's not easy to do things like this. New material as well. And so, did this band? Did it tour or play a lot? Many gigs?
We did some gigs. Yeah, we did some gigs and got a write up for the album. I think in Jazz Journal. Yeah.
People may not realise that actually very often with a project like this, it kind of tends to be done that way around now, doesn't it? Where you have to make the album to then send out to then get the gigs and so the tour. Yeah. So which is kind of back to front musically. You know, in the old days when you'd sort of tour a band for ages, and then when they're really, really hot, you go in the studio. You know, so things tend to be kind of the other way around now, and we tend to work on projects and things get to put together for the album. And then, so very often you are playing the music in the studio. But I mean, it's a stellar lineup you've got, isn't it? And
well, I mean, it did come together quick.
I bet,
with those people, you know, you couldn't fail.
Yeah,
it just went to, you know, they just played it as if they played everything as if they'd written it.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well, as I say, absolutely stellar lineup. And this is the album's called Special One, if people want to look that up. And this is a track called Just a Blues. And this is I'm presuming this is your tune that you
it is, yeah.
Picked. Yeah.
And it's well, I didn't take long to think about what to call it.
There is something quite interesting about this, though, where you've got this. It kind of you get these moments where there's a row and then the music stops and then it comes back in again. Was that difficult were you conducting, or was it just kind of done through listening to each other and just kind of on the feel?
There's a cue. It's a sort of cue thing that everyone is aware of. Yeah. And a pickup of 3, 4, 1 going into the next, where the chord changes, like bar 5.
And so the soloist sets that, do they, with their entry, with the pickup? Right.
They either play that bum bum or something like that leads into the next part. Yeah. And so there were people who were saying, well, after a while we should just swing, you know. But I kind of, because I'd written it, I insisted that we always do that.
Yeah, I like it. It's just it makes you stop and think a bit, doesn't it? Again, before it gets going again.
And the idea was to get more and more Larry as the thing went on. Right. And the recordings, you know, okay, but when we did start to do some gigs, it went wild.
I can imagine. Yes, yeah. Well, it's a pretty risky thing to do in the studio on a sort of not unrehearsed, but not fairly new music. And but again, you know, you guys pull it off beautifully. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, let's play a little bit of this, shall we? This is Just a Blues, and this features. Well, I've read them out, so here we go. Let's listen to a bit of this. you're enjoying the show, I just want to take a moment to tell you about a new way that you can help support me do this, and that is through patreon.com. That's right, I've got an account now, so the link's below here, patreon.com Buster Birch, and if you go along to there, you can now make donations by Visa credit card, so you don't have to use PayPal if you don't want to do that. And the advantage of Patreon is that once you do it once, it will automatically deduct on a per show basis. So instead of having to fill in the forms every week, if you want to make a regular donation, then that will just automatically deduct straight to your credit card each per show. And that is hugely helpful to me, because it means I know that I've got a certain amount coming in every time I do a show, and that really helps me plan ahead and keeps the viable sustainability of the show going. There's 2 levels of sponsorship. There's my silver and gold membership. All of my Patreon supporters will get a big thank you personally from me live on the show, and the gold member sponsors will get an additional Spotify playlist which will be sent to you each week. It's something that I'm putting together. It's personally curated by me and will feature lots more albums by the guest artists each week. So it's a great opportunity to get to know this music much better. If you're really enjoying the show and you like the little tasters that you're hearing, that's a great way to get to know this music even more and enjoy in full comfort the full sound of the full albums. Thanks very much. Back to the show. Yes, and welcome back to the show. My guest this evening is the fantastic piano player, Mr. Steve Melling, and really enjoying the music, Steve. It's wonderful. That's a great album, and so folks, do check that out. It's called Special One. A shout out to Derek Nash there for recording. Great sound on the track there. An incredible play. I mean, you know, as we were saying, it's all new music. You're just putting it together in the studio, but the band sounds so tight, Steve. They really are. And to pull off something like that where they're stopping and starting, and you know everything's done on the nod, just incredible, wonderful playing. Yeah.
Well, yes, with a fantastic.
And we have to mention also Esther Miller, who wrote some lyrics for that track. You said that features.
She did, yes.
Later on.
She called it "What About Us."
Excuse me. Sorry.
And yes, it was about musicians going on the road and speaking to their partner and all that, and saying, "Well, what about us?"
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So, well, we've got another track coming up, and this is again something you've sent over, which is unreleased. So this is another exclusive you've given us, which I'm very grateful for. And it's your trio, and you've got this fantastic trio with Andy Kleiner on the bass and Miles Levin on the drums, who's son of the great Tony Levin, and it's a great trio. It really sounds good, and this is a recording you made of a live concert, which wasn't released as an album or anything. It's just
no, it wasn't. It wasn't a live concert. It was at a venue that did jazz concerts and other music, that had a fantastic Steinway grand piano, and we went there for a day. There was no one there. We just went there in the daytime.
Oh, you weren't. This isn't the gig then. This was you just recording in the venue. Oh, I didn't realise. Yeah, lovely.
No, that's right. Yeah,
I see. Yeah.
Recorded in the venue.
Right.
And I was thinking, right out in the country it was, in Steyning. I'm not sure which county that is, but it's. But anyway, I got the piano tuned and I hired the room and all the rest. And Miles and Andy recorded it. Yeah.
He's done a lot of recording, and he used to record Bobby's band a lot as well when he was playing it. I know, and he's very good sound engineer, and he's a very clever guy, isn't he?
He is.
So he
is. I remember about that. I mean, we, as I said, it was like out in the country, thinking that's great, with no distractions. There's nobody in the place.
Yeah,
and we recorded something, and we were just sort of checking out the sound, and there's a duck in the pond.
Fantastic. You can make it up, could you?
Curtains get closed and all of this stuff, and and we just have to hope that there isn't a quiet bit.
And you hope there's not a goose coming around the corner.
The duck starts, yeah. But anyway, that's what it was. I don't think he's on there. Donald, I don't think he's there.
You must edit him out, yeah.
Track. Yeah. And this one, is it Sue's?
Sue's Good News, it's called. You've said it,
yeah. Sue's Good News. And, well, I wrote this for my wife. I mean, people don't know my wife as Sue. Her real name is Susan. And her family call her Sue, but nobody else does.
I see.
Everyone else knows her as Sam.
Right.
And that is a childhood nickname for her.
Right.
Because there was loads of Susans in her class.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah. Well, I thought we'd better clear that up just to be sure. There's no confusion there.
Yeah.
So this is dedicated to your wife. It's called Sue's Good News, and this is sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'd like to dedicate this also to the rest of the family.
Lovely.
On her side, on mine.
Wonderful. So. And this is not been played. This is not off an album. This is just something you're sharing with us tonight, which we really appreciate. And it's wonderful. Here we are then. Sue's Good News. Wonderful. Yes, just absolutely beautiful playing, Steve, and lovely trio there. Great sound. I mean, that's a wonderful recording. I do hope that you manage to put that out at some point or do something with that. We were just chatting, I know, and yeah, there is enough there for a whole album, I gather. Is there?
There's possibly. There's possibly. I can't remember how many tracks. There's at least half a dozen tracks, or maybe more.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to check out more, I mean, we've only have time to really just dip into a few things here. But I've just put your website into the chat box, folks. So if anyone wants to do check out Steve's website, and what I'll do is I'll put it in the description link below as well for anyone on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, you've created so much great music, Steve. And if people go to your website, there's a discography with a load of albums there. There's some great stuff with Peter King and Clark Tracy, and there's Alan Skidmore, which we're going to play a little bit of next. And you've also got a book of piano transcriptions that you've done of your own stuff, right? Is that how?
Yes, I've made a solo album. And,
and then, so you recorded it and played it, and then you transcribed it afterwards.
Yes.
Wow.
But I didn't not the whole thing, but the heads, the tunes, and how I played them. Right. At the beginning of each piece.
So if people want to get the track and then they can get the sheet music as well, and it will help them to study a bit of your approach there. That would be I imagine that's an amazing tool to have, for studying.
See what I played. I've even written the chord symbols and that sort of stuff as well. So.
And is this and they can buy that as a PDF on your website? Is that right?
They can.
Fantastic. Yeah, wonderful. And you're doing some Zoom teaching as well, I believe, as well. So if anyone wants to get in touch, Skype. So if anyone wants to get in touch,
I could do whatever, FaceTime or whatever.
Yeah.
But my main one that I've used is Skype. But people can get in touch with me if they're interested in that
through the website. Yeah. So
if they've got any criticisms of whatever we've talked about tonight, they can write that on a postcard and post it to somebody.
Write it on a £20 note and send it in, and we'll read it. Okay, yeah. Well, we're getting through it. It's fantastic. It's really, mate. We've got a couple more things to play.
Okay,
so let's talk a little bit now about Alan Skidmore, and you've got this. I mean, well, perhaps before we get to that, perhaps we should talk a little bit about your time at Ronnie's and some of we were chatting today about some of those kind of the experience as a musician. Well, first of all, I mean, they just don't. Even Ronnie's don't do this anymore, but they used to book bands for a week or even 2 weeks at a time, right? So, and they would have a visiting guest American band, usually a big name band. Yeah. And then they'd also have a British group which would play opposite them, and you'd just do 2 sets, and you'd go all night, and you'd be there for the whole week with these bands. So we saw a poster there from an early poster from when you were with the Brecker Brothers, with your trio opposite the Brecker Brothers. I mean, so many great groups there as well that you've worked alongside, and it must be an amazing experience.
Yes, I got to hear a lot of fabulous musicians there. Ronnie Scott's. I mean, that's anybody would probably know. I've heard of that place, even though they may not be into jazz so much. But what used to happen was that yes, we would book for a week. A band was booked for a week, and it was always a British band supporting, and we used to alternate sets with the whoever was the main attraction.
Yeah.
And the big time for me was the 90s.
Yeah, there was a lot of work there.
Worked there a lot.
Yeah.
Clark Tracy, probably. Actually, no. The very first time I worked there was that I was called up. I was only, I don't know, about 23, and I was called up by Mike Carr,
right,
organist,
Yeah, we had him on the show. Well, we had Dave Cliff on the show, and we played a little clip of the Mike Carr Trio some shows back. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah.
Swinging band.
And he said, can you do the first set at Ronnie's?
To cover for him, you mean?
Yes.
Right.
He said, I can make the second set.
Right.
Because that obviously didn't start until probably after 11.
Yeah.
He was working at the Bull's Head in Barnes. But, you know, he didn't want to sort of take the night off after that. He wanted to get, can you do the first set? You know, so I said, yeah. Okay. Not, you know.
And that was your first night there, yeah.
Yeah, and he said it's with Pete King.
Oh, yeah, great.
So, I went there, turned up at Ronnie's, but they said the bins are around the side, you know, whatever. And did at one set. I went to get my money, which, you know, after a gig, you don't get paid. So I went, and they said, "Oh, we pay the band on Saturday." And this was like a Tuesday night or something, you know. And I said, "What?" So they had to call the manager then, Pete King, the other Pete King. Yeah. He said, "Well, you get paid on Saturday." I might not sort it out. I don't know that. Anyway, I got my fee for one set.
Go on.
£12.50.
Hey. Big time, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'd made it then. Yeah. God. It was a shock, you know. Yeah. Anyway, but since then, after that, it was a while before I worked there again. But I worked there with Clark Tracy's quintet. We were opposite Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers.
Right. Yes, I'm pretty sure I was at that gig. I remember seeing. Yeah. I remember seeing you. I remember seeing your, because you know the names are outside a lot as well. And did you play with the Brecker Brothers often, or was that just that one set, slot? A couple times.
No, I worked there a few times with different bands. There was Claire Martin.
Yeah.
Brian Spring was
right.
Actually, he was a fantastic drummer, as you will know.
Yeah.
But
I'm pretty sure I saw you when the Brecker Brothers were there. I remember you being on, so I didn't know if you'd done that many times or there was just that one week that I would have been to.
No, well, what happened was that Pete, the manager Pete, said to me, "I want your trio on." Yeah. And I said, "Well, I haven't got a trio."
But he's not the sort of bloke you say no to, is he, either?
He'd get one.
I get one. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, and so I got Arnie Somergy.
Great.
And Dave Ohm, who...
Yeah, lovely drummer, yeah.
Yeah, and I said to him, I called him up and said, I've got the guys. I've got a trio, Pete. You said get a trio, I've got one.
Yeah.
He said, right, what are you doing November, whatever it was? Okay. And he said, you're opposite the Brecker Brothers. All right. I said, okay. Yeah. And of course, that was the first trio gig I did there. And it was packed, as you would imagine, all week. And it was just sensational. And I was, pooping my pants, at least for the first night anyway. But it was great. We just lapped it up, really.
But there's something about that playing, isn't it? And in that intense, and that's like, for the jazz world, that's like playing at Carnegie Hall, isn't it? Here, and opposite the Brecker Brothers, but then it's not a one-off. Then you do that for a whole week. You play 2 sets every night for a whole week. Yeah. What an incredible experience for any band to sort of have that, with that intensity of that playing in a full house and a place like that, with all that energy and vibe, and you're just sort of playing your arse off every night. You can feel. Can you feel that connection grow throughout the week? I think that's quite often I'd go and see bands twice. You'd see them on the Monday and then you'd see them on the Friday, and it would be, you could hear that difference. Not that there was more. Not I'm saying that it was better or rehearsed, but there was something about that. There's something about playing jazz, isn't there? When you do it night after night like that with the same people, that's right. Yeah, you can't beat it, can you?
Yeah. Yeah, and by Saturday night, you were just, you know, it was just.
Because the music relies on the people having this connection and thinking and that kind of conversational playing off each other. So the more tuned in you are, the stronger that gets, doesn't it? Which is it's just a shame that that's just doesn't happen anymore. It's not possible. Yeah, it's just one nighters, isn't it? Even the biggest name bands are just doing kind of one nighters.
That's right. That's right. Yes, and I did manage to talk to some of the people as well, some of the visitors.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Chatting with the Brecker brothers, and it was nice actually because my dad and his partner were there Saturday night, the last night.
Oh, lovely.
And Randy, everyone had gone. Like the audience had gone. People were sort of. And I was just sort of waiting around and maybe going to say bye to the guys.
Yeah.
And Randy Brecker came over. Purposely to say hi to my dad, and and it was so nice.
Yeah, gentlemen. Yeah. Well, look. What now? Perhaps you could just mention a little bit about this gig we're going to see now. So you've given us a fantastic bit of rare footage, which again I don't think is on the internet. So it's another exclusive. You've given us some absolute beauties, Steve, tonight. So I appreciate that. And this is from a German TV show.
Yeah.
And this is from a club. So you recorded this in a jazz club in Cologne. And we think it's around about 1995. Does that sound?
Yeah.
Did we establish that?
That's what we think. Yeah. And it is. It was a live recording of the gig. That's we just played a gig. And they recorded it.
And they filmed it, and then they put it on the TV show in Germany. Yeah. And this is Alan Skidmore, yourself on piano, Arnie Somergy on the bass, Gary Husband on the drums in a very fine form. So was this part of a tour, or did you go for this one gig, or how did that come off?
That was a one-off.
Kind of flew out and did it. But you'd all played together for a bit. This was a fairly regular lineup. Yeah,
we had played together a lot. And we went to Germany a few times too. Because Alan Skidmore played in Germany a lot, had done since the 70s, and was a member of the European Jazz Ensemble and European Jazz Quintet, etc., etc. That was run by the bass player Ali Howrand, and he was the guy who was really the contact to get gigs for Alan and Alan's band.
Great, and so he's a recognised kind of artist in that environment, and that's it's certainly full house again, isn't it? It's a great energy, and it's a great clip. And I mean, famously, Alan is a kind of a great exponent of the kind of John Coltrane school of playing, and clearly he's a great influence on him. And again, you're such a natural fit there as well. I know McCoy Tyner is someone who's an influence on you, and so that kind of I can see how that just goes hand in glove with you with Alan Skidmore there. And this is a track. It's actually it's part of the famous Love Supreme recording, isn't it? It's one of the movements, which is called Resolution. And this is you, and unfortunately we couldn't get it all in, but we're gonna certainly hear a bit of it. So here we go, and I mean you guys are really absolutely on fire here. Here we go. So. Yes, unfortunately we had to fade that, but absolutely astonishing playing there. Wonderful stuff. My guest, Steve Melling, on the piano there, with Alan Skidmore on the tenor saxophone, Arnie Somersby on the bass, and Gary Husband on the drums, live in Germany, in Cologne, we said.
Yes, Cologne was a club called the Subway.
The Subway. And I was just saying to you that I just love those lines where he's kind of descending down and he's cycling around and sort of waiting for it to land. It just builds this incredible tension, and then it's like boom, and then the whole thing's just constantly building up with that energy. It's wonderful. Absolutely, so exciting to.
That is this kind of characteristic of that sort of period of Coltrane's music.
Yeah,
I mean, it was extreme tension and then release. For a long period of time, and then it would just release. And when it got to that, it's so simple. There's no.
Well, you say that, but it's
not rocket science. What happens is not rocket science, and it releases.
Yes.
To be more simple, and then it sounds like the sun comes up. Then it's just,
Yes. The intensity. It's just, and that sustained. What was it? I think Wynton Marsalis. He said, "When it's sustained intensity equals ecstasy." I thought that's nice. And it's just that thing of just keeping it going, isn't it? Until and you're all really playing off each other, and the drums are and I think there's something between drums and piano. I know drums and bass, obviously we talk about a lot with the playing the time, but that when you hear that, I think that really shows the relationship of the drums and the piano there. I think that and that's a really special thing. It can be so exciting.
Yes. In certain kinds of jazz, piano needs to have a really good relationship with the bass player.
Yeah.
But for this, really, I really do focus a lot on drums.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes from the drums.
Yeah. And that, I mean, of course, the great Coltrane group with Elvin and McCoy, and that was a really special. They laid the foundations for that kind of sound, didn't they? That kind of sound world.
Yeah,
but you guys are just are doing. It's just incredible what the level that you're playing at there with each other. It must be quite joyful to just let yourself go like that when you're in such great company and you can do that and you're not having to hold back or like just you can just do it and go for it. It must be a great feeling.
It is. Yeah, it's a great feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
You just, and everybody feels like that. That if something goes this particular way, everybody will fall in.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're doing.
Yeah, but there's not too many people you can do that with, is there? And it must be nice when you all get together, when you've got a group like that, where you're all in that sort of mindset and you're all at that level and you can all play that music in that way. And to have that connection musically, it must be really, really something. So Brian's mentioned what you used to call a McCoy up. Does it ring any bells? A McCoy up?
Yes, well, yeah, I suppose that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, it is just quite astonishing, Steve. Yeah. And, well, unfortunately, time has marched on, and we've got another track which we usually like to play out at the end. So, but before we go, is there anything that you feel like you want to mention that we've not covered? Or there's so much music that we've not been able to cover.
Well, there is one thing. I actually did do 2 gigs with Elvin Jones.
Yes.
With Jazz Machine, his band. And
do you want to share that, because that's an interesting story? You were telling me today about that with that was through Peter King, wasn't it?
Yeah. Pete was playing at Ronnie's Scott's with Elvin,
right.
And Elvin's pianist was Japanese, and he had to go to Japan to do some big time recording or concert or whatever it was, and they had a gig coming, or 2 gigs coming up in Germany the following week, and he had to go off. So Pete had given him during that week, he'd given Elvin Pete's latest CD to have a listen to,
which you were on.
which I was on.
Yeah. Right.
And Elvin's telling Pete he hasn't got a piano player.
Right.
I'm thinking, maybe can he help him out in some way? And Pete then said to Elvin, "What about the guy who's on my album?" I don't even know whether Elvin had listened to it, but then Elvin said, well, Pete said that Elvin said, "Can you get him?"
Yeah. All right.
And so Pete said, "It's there. If you get a call."
Yeah.
So it was Keiko, Elvin's wife, who called me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And said
she took
Elvin,
care of it all, didn't she? And set his drums up and carried him and everything. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, she was a lot. And she just called me and said, "Can you do this?" And it was Frankfurt, near to Frankfurt, where the gig was. And she said there'll be tickets arriving, and I was going at a separate time to everybody else. I just went on my own. And she said there'll be a car there when you get there. It was far away from it was at the airport, way out of Frankfurt. It was like Luton or something, London Luton, which is not. Anyway, in the band, the bass player was Greg Williams, who I hadn't heard of before, and I haven't heard of him since. Delfeo Marsalis was on trombone.
Trombone, yeah, right, yeah.
And Ravi Coltrane.
Saxophone, yeah.
Tenor and soprano.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was right. We did rehearsal. No music.
What did you play? So was it some of his stuff from his
his originals, but we
Jazz Machine. It was the band, wasn't it?
Yeah. Elvin's originals. There was a Japanese folk song.
That's right. There's an out. Yeah, I think I know. Yeah.
And Elvin said to Delfeo Marsalis, "Go and show him or tell him." So Delfeo came over and said, "Okay, you just play that voicing for this part," and it basically that. So he gave me a clue.
Cool.
And for the chart, and played, and then there was one thing that he called, and just counted it in, and we were off, and that was something we hadn't done at all at the rehearsal. So I was busking.
Yeah.
Busking.
He just presumed that you were fine, which I guess is the great compliment that he's paying you, isn't he? Rather than trying to roast you up.
Somebody did say, I think it could have been Delfeo. He was the most chatty. He said, "Yeah, you do sound like MT."
MT.
That's what they used to call McCoy. Right. Yeah. MT.
Well, that's a great compliment. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and apparently, I was, hopeful that I might do some more with them. Yeah. But then I heard Elvin say, "MT's coming round with us next."
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, you don't mind bowing out to him, do you? Yeah, that's fair enough. Yes, with Elvin's band. Yes, yeah. Fantastic. What a great story. Well, thanks, Steve. It's been really nice to see you and catch up again and not seen each other for a little while. But thank you for sharing your time and your music, and thank you for making it so easy and providing all that stuff for me, and for bringing all those lovely exclusives that you've brought along. It's very good of you. And don't forget, folks, do check out Steve's website. There's plenty more on there. And for those of you who are my patrons, you'll be getting a little playlist coming soon of a few Spotify things that Steve's on that are already on Spotify that I've collated. So that just leaves me to say thank you to everybody. It's nice to see everybody in the chat box, and it's great to see you all there. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have enjoyed the show, folks, and enjoyed the music, then do consider a donation. It's really gratefully received at the moment. And you just follow the link below, and you can do it there through PayPal, or through you can pay by Visa on my Patreon page, which you can get to through the same link. So next week I've got the fantastic Jeff Gascoigne on, supreme bass player, composer, arranger, producer, and artist. So we forgot to say he did the artwork for that album, didn't he, Steve?
Yeah, the Septet album.
The Septet album. Yeah, that was Jeff's artwork. So we might ask him about that next week. And we're going to play out with this track. This is a CD you made on Ronnie Scott's house label, which they made a lot of records, didn't they? Which were great. And am I right in thinking that you would just go and play in the club like in the afternoon or something like that? They would often do these sort of sessions there.
Well, no, they recorded during the week, the actual. So
the actual gig. So right, okay, yeah.
But there was times when the audience were making such a racket, especially in the quieter things, like this next thing that we're going to hear.
Ballads, yes, right.
Ballads, it was murder. Often you'd end up not playing any ballads for that reason.
Right, I see. That makes sense.
But this is a duo. Bass and piano with myself and Simon Wolfe, and this was one that we did go in earlier in the day when it was quiet. No one in it was recorded in the club, and with no one there apart from the recording engineer who went like that on the button.
And the album's called Trio Duo Solo.
Yes.
So for
good luck with getting a hold of a copy of that. But I'd like to dedicate this one just really to all my friends and colleagues who, whether they're listening in to this or not, and we're just looking forward to a time when we can meet up again.
Yeah.
And this is particularly for one friend of mine whose birthday it is today.
Who's that?
He knows who he is. It's Vince. And,
happy birthday, Vince.
A friend of mine is, and goodness knows what sort of state he'll be in now.
Well, cheers. Happy birthday, Vince. Have one for us both if you're enjoying yourself. Yeah.
And so this is a tune, sort of looking forward to meeting up with people.
Wonderful.
and from the lyrics, a little bit from the lyrics of the song, we'll catch up some other time. Some other time,
yeah. And the bass player on this is Simon Wolfe as well, isn't he? So,
Simon Wolfe, yeah. He plays he plays half a chorus solo.
Lovely.
And there's nice playful bits in it.
Leonard Bernstein, is it, wrote this? Yeah.
Leonard Bernstein wrote it, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thanks, mate. It's been lovely seeing you. And thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And I think this is a wonderful idea. And thank you for sharing this, Steve. And yes, indeed, we will catch up some other time, indeed. Yep. Hopefully not before too long. Hope to see everybody. And I hope we get to play again soon as well.
Yes.
That would be lovely. Okay, cheers then, everyone. Good night. See you soon. Bye. See you next week.
Cheers. Bye.